All right, guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about, should live sonar be illegal? So what is live sonar? We should probably talk about this first, especially for you new beginners. Also, like and subscribe if you think that you will like to start trying to fish. If you're a new guy, then I have already a couple videos out about fishing, so go check those out as well. It's also called forward-facing sonar, like Garmin Live Scope and such. And it also shows real-time images of fish and your lure underwater. It's really cool to see like a little light spot when you're like doing like a jig or something, or jerkbait or something. It's really cool to watch that in the water, especially when bass come up and eat it, or any type of fish. It has changed tournament bass fishing big time over the past couple of years. I mean, if you look at past records of like what people caught in different tournaments compared to what they do now in all these tournaments with the live sonar, it's a big difference. Then we also want to talk about arguments against live sonar and why it might need some limits. So it takes away the traditional fishing skills that you might need. So like back in the day, they didn't have any of this technology. They were just guessing and checking, just trying to see what they can find in these waters. And they didn't have anything telling them where all these fish are. They have to physically go and look and search for fish. And pattern fishing, reading structure, and seasonal knowledge may matter less if you know exactly where the fish are, and you can literally put your bait right in front of their mouth and just move it a little bit. It can also overpressure suspended fish, which makes them really skeptical about eating again, and so that might make them a little bit more skeptical the next time they try to get bit they try to bite when something's put right in front of their mouth. And fish that once had refuge in open water gets targeted now constantly. Big water like Lake Michigan, let's say, and without this stuff, you'd have no idea where the fish are. You have no idea how many fish there are. You have no idea where they're at, except for maybe guessing and checking different like drops and stuff. But now you know exactly where the fish are at, and if you're on a boat with a live sonar, you can just stop exactly right above them and just drop a bait. It's not even real fishing at that point, honestly. Fishing is called fishing, not catching. But there is another thing that gives especially beginners and like high school tournaments a disadvantage, that it's a high cost. So if we're talking about like the Garmin Live Scopes and stuff, I'll post up right here, but they get pretty dang expensive. And it's not something that somebody can just go and get. They can usually cost $2,000 to $4,000, making it tough for like the average angler that's just trying to go out and have a good time. That's not their daily job. So they have no idea what to do. Also changes the spirit of fishing. Some argue it might turn fishing into a video game fishing. I don't know, have you ever played like Clash of Fish or whatever? Something like that. But literally, you catch a fish instantly. You're catching it maybe every 10 seconds at most. And you're catching some pretty big fish as well. That's what fishing is going to be now. It's literally, we're going to have to start calling it catching, like I said. Like, it's not going to be actual fishing. There's no hard work that you need to be putting into this. There's no time and effort that you need to be putting into each and every single lake that you're going to, because you don't know the spot. But now with this live sonar, you can just go to any lake you want. You could be even a whole separate side of the country, and you can find the fish easily and then just start catching them. There's no fun in that. It may also impact fish populations in certain lakes, especially small pressured lakes in places like Michigan. Like, we have a bunch of little small lakes, and some of them don't have that great of fish population, especially Gun Lake. We don't have that much. If you're using live sonar on something like that, we're going to have even less fish for future generations to catch. So that's where it just kind of makes it tricky in these areas. Youth and high school fairness concerns. So the wealth gap between some teams can be obvious, especially between like a school with a lot of kids or a school like my school where we only have about 100 kids in our whole high school. And this is going to make it hard for our bass fishing team, who doesn't get direct funding from the school, especially being a Christian school. So we have to figure out how to get all our different anglers all these live sonar and stuff. So for us, we just use boats that like people from the church provide, or like not provide for the team, but they let us use their boats technically. So we have a driver, and then we have two high school fishers, and a lot of these guys are just small town dudes that have a nice boat, but they don't make enough money to be able to buy live sonar. But then you have all these rich kids from bigger schools that have plenty of money to just go and buy a live sonar the day before. So it's just makes it a little bit tougher for high school and it just gives advantage to the wealthy and a disadvantage to the not so wealthy. So basically, if you're in high school, the more money you have, the better chance you have at catching fish. But then there's also arguments for live sonar and why it should stay legal and everything. It's just new technology. So fishing has evolved from like flashers and to 2D different images on your screens. So it's just part of fishing. It just evolves over time, basically. We also go from like 2D to side imaging to now live sonar. So we just got to make sure that we don't get too ahead of ourselves. Like, this is just part of fishing. It's not always something bad. And it doesn't make the fish bite. This is just a tool to help us find the fish. And you can still choose the right bait, presentation, and timing. That you still have to do those three things, and those are the most important with fishing. This is just showing you where the fish are at a certain time. It's not going to tell you where the fish are at tomorrow, so to say, And it also helps us learn fish behavior so that we can catch more fish. And specifically bass, not a lot of people like to eat them. And so we're just going to be able to catch them more often, but we can still release them for them to live longer for other people to catch. And anglers understand how bass react to pressure, seasons, and presentations. And it boosts tournament competition. Like, if everybody, so to say, was able to get this stuff, then there'd be way more fish caught, and you'd see people catching like more 5-pound bass instead of everybody catching like 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. Like, everybody would be catching their limit, and they'd be catching a lot of their limit. And that would make it fun, especially for the new anglers who have no idea about this stuff, but they're still catching big fish. So they're having a good time. But like events like the Bassmaster Elite Series and Major League Fishing showcase high-skill tech-based performances. And so when you're watching these guys, watching fishing can get pretty dang boring over time, especially if nobody's catching anything. But now with this new technology, guys like that who we like to watch, they're catching more fish, and that's making it a lot more exciting to watch. And it's legal gear. It's not cheating yet. We'll talk about that in a second. And if it's allowed in the rules, it's part of the game. So if it's allowed, it's allowed. Might as well use it, Should it be illegal in certain situations? My personal beliefs is that maybe it should be banned in certain tournaments. And I know all these like MLF, Major League Fishing, and the Elite Series, they can afford this stuff. So I believe that they should be able to use it, because then that makes it more fun for us to watch them. This will just help it go from luck-based for the winner to now skill-based, because you found the fish. Okay, great. Now you have to do the presentation like we said. You have to use the right bait, use the right presentation, and timing. So you got to make sure that you're doing those things. But I believe that it should not be allowed in high school. Not a lot of these guys have enough money. This is not their full-time job. They're not making millions upon millions off of this stuff. So it just creates an unfair advantage. Now, of course, when you're pre-fishing a spot, you can't always detect who's using live sonar and who's not. And like I said before, the fish will change from day to day where they're at. They're not going to, it depends on if you're in the spawn or something, but they're not going to stay in the same spot, so to say. So I believe it should not be allowed in the tournaments itself for high schoolers. For more MLF type stuff, I think it should be allowed. But then also on small inland lakes, states like Michigan could regulate it on heavily pressured waters. And of course, it's not always going to be easy to be able to do that, especially with a larger body of water. Maybe it's only a half mile or something across the whole thing, but it's really hard to tell if somebody's using live sonar. And then also seasonal restrictions. Maybe you can have it in the summer, fall, or because you don't really need it that much, so to say, in the spring. You can usually within the spawn, you can see right down in the water looking at them. So you don't really need it. So maybe a seasonal restriction might be nice, especially for the state of Michigan, but also a lot more catch and release. With this new technology, you're going to be able to catch more fish, especially during season. So maybe make all the seasons a little bit smaller, just so that we keep that fish population up. Probably not have it fully illegal nationwide. There's going to be some states where you probably won't need it with how much fish they have. In fact, they probably have too much fish, so it should be recommended to have. And maybe a little bit cheaper prices in those areas. Maybe have a little bit more expensive prices for live sonar in Michigan or something. But down in different states where there's too much fish, maybe regulates that it's a little bit cheaper, It's also hard to enforce all these laws, and technology usually doesn't go backwards. So now that we're to this point, we're probably not going to get rid of it. So you might as well make the use of it and it's hard to enforce on open water. So especially when you're like deep sea or something, you're catching like marlin or whatever, it's hard to enforce that. But as long as we're sticking to the laws that our DNR has given us for all these fish, and we're just sticking to our limit, it should be a lot easier. But it does definitely make the DNR have to work a little bit harder, especially with people with live sonar on their boat. Probably gonna have to check them a little bit more. Now, I fully support DNR. I love what they do, and honestly, I think we should especially lower prices in Michigan for especially deer, because those are getting out of hand and there's not a lot of hunters. I get why they need to, but it's just not going to make people want to hunt more if you're making your prices higher. But that's for another video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and yeah, subscribe. Go watch our past videos that we have. I should be able to get some more real fishing videos out, not just informational videos. Once it warms up, it's supposed to warm up later this week, so maybe I'll go out this weekend and catch something. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think for some different videos, ideas down in the comments below. And yeah, hope you guys have a good day. Peace.